an ideal life partner.
She was attractive and smart and vivacious. At times, she almost seemed too perfect.
At the end of the visit, and 18 days after meeting this person for the first time, we got married.
2 marriages that become entangled in a deadly web of deception and violence.
My blood froze. It was this crazy, crazy world that I'd entered into just got a whole lot crazier.
I don't know a good way to describe their marriage other than it's just strange.
And come to one shocking end.
He said there was a shooting in the house. Someone tried to kill Mommy.
I just looked at them and I said, "Is my son here?" And they go, "Yes." And I'm like, "Is he dead?"
Love may be blind and marriage bliss, but divorce is murder. (1987). John Pittman, a high-flying medical student in Chicago, catches the eye of Tracy Richter, a bright and beautiful radiographer.
She was attractive and smart and vivacious, and she had an ability to read people that I hadn't really ever encountered before. She also sort of had a way of knowing what you were, wanted to hear or were very interested in, and at times she almost seemed too perfect.
And she always got good grades in school. And at that time, because her SAT test, she got one of the highest scores, I'm pretty sure, in the whole United States.
She has a 145, 150 IQ, which is very, very high IQ, very bright, very perceptive.
In 1989, the happy newlyweds move west to the mountain city of Denver, Colorado, where John throws himself into a demanding medical career.
I was in a high-powered, high-energy, high-demand residency, 120-hour work week. The residency went very well. Things were very promising.
When he meets Tracy's family, the Richters, they give John a warm Midwestern welcome.
Very down-to-earth, but I like that. So we all got along just great.
We treated him like a son, no different than if he was our son. And up to that point, I mean, he was okay. And my point is, I'm not married to him. You don't all like the same people.
But after 2 years, the honeymoon is over. Tracy's career falters, and she becomes unsettled and restless.
She would get a job, then all of a sudden, I'd get some sort of story, and then she'd be doing a different job, and then there'd be a different job.
She's just as unhappy staying at home.
As she didn't really have a job. She was just around the house, and not much was getting done. She also claimed we were both big animal lovers, or so she claimed she was, and I am a big animal lover. So we started acquiring pets, and which is great. But I found myself being the one taking care of them.
Psychotherapist Stacy Kaiser and forensic psychologist Brian Russell see signs of trouble emerging.
I think intellectually you can understand, I'm married to a man who works a lot of hours because he's building a career and a life for us. And I think emotionally you can still feel neglected. I see this happen with women all the time. Just because I understand that you need to work doesn't mean that I don't want your love and adoration.
If one person feels smart and intelligent and capable, and yet it's the other person who seems to be the one who's busy, the one who has the life outside the home, the one who's making the money, getting all the recognition and prestige, you can have a resentment born of that.
John's parents never really warmed to his young wife, and their opinion of her is about to plummet.
There was a major credit card fraud incident, and that was the first real sign of things to come. My parents had 2 high-limit credit cards that someone got their hands on.
After thousands of dollars are spent on household items, John's parents investigate the trail of fraud. Their investigation leads to a very surprising source, Tracy.
When you take the credit card, how it was used, where it was used, who the list of suspects were, which was a very short list, it really started to look like it was her. She was adamant in her denials. I mean adamant. She basically said there is in no way was she involved with this in any way, shape, or form, and anyone who would accuse her of such, was out to get her.
No charges are filed, and the couple try to put it behind them. But the atmosphere within the family remains chilly, made worse, according to Anna, by the birth of their son.
I was out there when Bert was born, and I think the 6 weeks that I was out there, if you would put all the days together that John was home, maybe it would come out to a week. But even when he was home, he was always very distant, very much to himself. It was difficult for John to show affection, and he didn't seem to have attachments.
Whoever's at fault, the couple's arguments become longer, crueler, and more frequent.
She became difficult in a hurry. She had an explosive temper, which I had never seen before. There became a cycle where no matter what happened, all of a sudden it was my fault, and that was I was responsible. And you certainly shoulder your share of the blame, and maybe a little bit extra, and that's fine. But I began to really notice that she never really took responsibility for anything. It looked like she just was looking for something to complain about on a daily basis, and to create a picture of enemies, surrounding her, including me, and certainly my family. She would go to work somewhere, and then there would be some horrible incident. I remember she said that some boss's son sexually harassed her and, was accusing her of all sorts of things. So there would always be some sort of blow up, some big incident.
As the tension escalates, Tracy's temper takes a dramatic and violent turn.
It was, again, something really minor. I think my shoes were out of place or something really tiny. And she just absolutely exploded. And it was not like anything I'd ever seen. It was almost like an animal. And she turned to me and said, you're never going to leave this house alive. She comes out of the bedroom waving a gun. And I knew we had a gun, but I didn't know that's what she was getting. But once I saw it, I basically dove out the door as soon as I saw that. I heard the gun go off. And she appeared at the front door and was super apologetic, and I'm so sorry, and all of a sudden that entire mood and rage was gone, just gone.
John calls the police, but Tracy insists she had no intention of shooting him.
As Tracy was charming, very passive, and very apologetic, she then explained to me that it was a suicide attempt, that she wanted to kill herself. Which, she shot in the air, and I didn't see what happened. I did not see her physically shoot the gun. It was possible.
She was distraught. She brought the gun down, didn't realize it was loaded, and it went off. I find the claims that John would say she tried to harm him funny, because at the time, never once did he ever accuse her of trying to harm him. Never once.
Stacy Kaiser and Dr. Brian Russell see a marriage in serious trouble.
The discharge of the gun maybe was accidental at that point, but the propensity for her to create a risk for violence, at the very least, should have been a giant red flag waving all over the place in front of him.
They aren't really talking about their problems. They're just busy living their lives. And I think it really made her escalate to a point of almost going crazy.
After the gun incident, Tracy is charged with discharging a weapon. She's forced to undergo 6 months of psychological counseling. But the couple is determined to repair the damage. John gets a job back in Chicago, and they begin preparations for the move.
We sold our house, and all of our pets were supposed to be sent to Chicago. But she called me up one day in this panic and said, oh my gosh, something terrible has happened, they're gone. She made this big story and very emotional and very convincing that, she had taken them to a company that said they'd ship them, but it turns out it was some front for some lab somewhere and they're gone now, which I thought was bizarre. At that point, I realized something is completely wrong, that there is something wrong here.
Convinced Tracy is lying, John seeks the advice of a private investigator.
I started telling him about the pets, and he keyed in on that immediately and said, there's a problem. And then he started asking me questions, one after the other, and I was like, yeah. He says, is this true? And I was like, yeah. Is this happening? Yeah. And he just sort of went down. It was like he had a checklist. He said, the person that can just throw away that many, animals that you're killing yourself taking care of, tells you something.
As the interview continues, John remembers another suspicious incident.
She had asked me multiple times to increase my life insurance, and I was like, well, why? I'm just a resident. I mean, it's not like, we have big assets to protect or something like that. But she really was persistent, really, really constantly badgered me about that, and I didn't do it.
John's fears proved to be justified.
He concluded the interview and he said, yeah, you definitely need to, you need to hire somebody because your life's in danger.
John Pittman and Tracy Richter had so much potential. But the rosy glow of newlywed love has dimmed, leaving violence, fear, and paranoia. By 1992, John has hired an investigator to unravel what he believes is a plot against his life.
What the investigator explained to me was that, number one, what she's going to try to do is get you alone where she knows you're alone and you're in private. And that's when it's going to happen, because she's not going to kill you. She's going to have someone else do it.
I think that John did the right thing by hiring a private investigator. That said, if you reach a point in a relationship where you think you need to hire an investigator, then I think you have to really look at whether or not you should be in that relationship.
As John and Tracy prepare to move back east to Chicago, the investigator continues his surveillance.
She called me and said, hey, let's meet at our apartment, and then we'll go get some dinner. I said, okay, and I as soon as I got off the phone, Glenn, the investigator, called, and he said, something's going on. And I said, well, why do you say that? And he said, did she just call you? Because you could see her on the cell phone. He said, what did she say? And I explained, and he said, well, you got a real problem. And I said, why is that? He said, well, your apartment is due east, and she is headed straight west as fast as she can go. And he said, whatever you do, do not go to your apartment, and you need to go to a public place right now. Sure enough, she called a few minutes later and said, oh, I'm at the apartment. Where are you? She wasn't at the apartment at all. She was up in the mountains at that point.
John never discovers whether there really was a hitman lying in wait. But his fears are heightened when the investigator reports that Tracy is associating with some very shady characters.
He said they're living under assumed names. He said the vehicles they drove were registered to other people. She spent 7 different nights with 4 different males, something like that. So this obviously wasn't an affair. There was something else going on here completely. These are people you don't want to be fooling around with. So with that, I, was very thankful that I had gotten out of there alive. I didn't need any more convincing at that point. That was pretty obvious to me that she really had a problem.
4 years into their marriage, in fear for his life, John moves out of the family home, leaving his wife and 2-year-old son. Initially, Tracy refuses to accept that the marriage is over.
She kept calling me, wanting to reconcile and all this, and I just didn't want anything to do with it. I just didn't even want to think about it at that point.
But 4 years later, with the divorce finalized, Tracy does move on in a dramatic way. By 1996, she is swept up in a whirlwind internet romance with Australian entrepreneur Michael Roberts.
Wasn't particularly interested at the beginning, but there was a little bit of backwards and forwards, mainly with email. I mean, she was beautiful, she was articulate, she was very engaging, socially talented, and everybody loved her. So it, signed me up. I was hooked.
Tracy agrees to fly to Australia and meet Michael in person. Tracy's mother, Anna, is alarmed at the prospect.
You're going to a different country, you don't know this person. Are you sure this is what you want to do? But she wanted to go out there. He talked her into coming out there. And Michael can be very persuasive.
Tracy came to Australia, and well, I proposed. And at the end of the visit, and 18 days after meeting this person, for the first time, we got married.
Just a few months later, Michael moves to Chicago. He quickly discovers that his new bride has plenty of baggage from her previous marriage. Tracy rages against her ex, John Pittman, who is fighting to get custody of their young son.
Tracy asserted that he was a narcissist, that he was cared only about money, about himself, about power and prestige.
In the years following the separation, John and Tracy's custody battle has become increasingly hostile.
So next thing I know, I'm suddenly being accused of everything under the sun, of being this terrible husband and, you know, have multiple affairs and all these things that she looked like she had done.
She was just having a lot of problems even afterwards with visitation with him. And like he would take him and wouldn't bring him back when he was supposed to, and at one time he abducted him. And so there was a lot of hard feelings, and I think that was what really put the wedge between them.
Our son started showing up, and he's only 3 years old at the time, with very strange marks on him, on his face, on his body, that, you know, kids fall and they get bruised, and, you know, that stuff happens. But these look strange to me. And I started asking him about it, and at first he really wouldn't say much about it, but then he started telling me that his mother had hit him, which was a real shocker to me. That was a shocker. I did not see her ever being violent towards her child, and I didn't expect that.
Tracy makes a startling accusation that throws the custody proceedings into chaos.
We walk into court, filing a motion, you know, all these things, and they turn around, their attorney says, well, we have physical evidence that he's been sexually molested and that his father is the responsible party. And I was in shock. I was stunned. All of a sudden, flyers started appearing on all the cars around the hospital, naming me as a child molester, and they were all putting on the windows of the cars in the parking lot right across from my apartment.
John denies everything and fights Tracy's accusations tooth and nail, but Michael believes her and stands loyally by her side.
I adopted the battle as my own. My time, my money, my resources, my emotions. I put a big hedge around the family to protect them from this monster, Dr. Pittman.
The custody battle is not Tracy's only disturbing legal dispute. She tells Michael she's also suing her dentist, a Dr. Laspiza, for an incident during which she says she was drugged and sexually assaulted.
She said she woke up and to find her dress around her waist, and that he was fondling her breasts and masturbating, and that she had red high-heel shoes that were far too small for her feet, on her feet. And that was the story. And I'm like, oh man, what do I do with this? Give me my normal life back. But of course, she's my wife and somebody's raped her. So I was, you know, the fangs came out again, and I had a new battle to fight.
Even though she's suing for damages, Tracy has not gone to the police. And bizarrely, she's waited several months before telling Michael about the incident.
I felt pretty dishonored to be left in the dark by that. It's like, if somebody sexually assaults you and it's not your fault, why wouldn't you tell me?
Tracy's supposedly a victim over and over and over and over again. It seems like every man who comes into Tracy's life has abused her, or abused her children, or abused both, mistreated her in some way. Okay, this is either the most unlucky human being in the history of the world in front of me right now, or this is a liar in front of me right now.
You're stressed out and I don't feel...
Just like his predecessor, Michael is shocked by Tracy's hair-trigger temper.
When Tracy wanted to go out for hamburgers for dinner for the 4th time in a row, I said, can we have something healthy? And She took that as a personal affront. She just turned into a monster. She literally turned in front of 2 lanes of traffic on our side and then 4 lanes of traffic on the other side, wheels spinning, to go somewhere else. And from that point on, I was hypervigilant.
And Michael isn't exempt from Tracy's colorful perception of reality. She complains that he's both neglectful and overly controlling.
He was very possessive. When she would come over, because she'd say, oh, he's playing video games downstairs and he's been down there for 3 hours. So she says, I got lonely, so I came over. She would be in the house 5 minutes and he'd be calling, when are you coming home? When are you coming home? Wherever she was, she couldn't go anywhere.
My relationship with Tracy was acrimonious. It was dysfunctional. It was debilitating. I was always looking for something that would change Tracy or change me, because of course I blamed myself for a lot as well. I didn't understand why, but it was all my fault. And the Richter family now make that very clear that it's all my fault now too, so.
Tracy has people who adamantly defend her. And not only does she paint herself to be the victim, but she creates elaborate stories about how other people have hurt her, and she's just been this sweet, innocent person in the mix.
The trust in this relationship is rapidly fading, especially when Michael suspects infidelity.
One thing that she claimed before we even met the first time was that she was a model for Black Velvet whiskey, and that she would do these modeling gigs and it was always in a short black velvet dress, but never brought a paycheck for it, and sometimes would come home sooner than the trip to wherever she was going would have taken and have showers when she comes home.
Suspecting affairs, Michael tries to fix the problem by arranging for couples counseling.
But I thought all the fault was mine, because Tracy and her parents would tell me that was the case. She would accuse me with counselors of certain things, and I would admit them just to show, just because if I didn't, of course, that's denial. And I just wanted to try and break through. It was a very, very strange time.
If this marriage is to survive, he and Tracy need a fresh start. In 1998, the couple decides to leave Chicago and start again in a small Iowa town called Early.
It was pretty much, or throw a dart at a map. That's how we came to be in Early, Iowa, unfortunately, for the people of Early, Iowa.
By the year 2000, they have 2 children together, giving Tracy's son a new brother and sister. Michael's business is flourishing, and the family seems content.
The move from Chicago to Early was a breath of fresh air for me. There was just so many stresses in my life, and it was away from what I thought to be unhealthy influences.
But his optimism quickly fades. The family is about to be caught up in an inexplicable tragedy.
He said there was a shooting in the house. Someone tried to kill Mommy.
Tracy Richter and Michael Roberts are proving to be popular in small-town Iowa. Neighbors are unaware of their checkered history. Tracy's ongoing custody battles with her first husband, John, the sexual assault claim against a dentist, and her alleged affairs in Chicago. Mona Wehde, a local real estate agent, has no idea that her life will be tragically transformed by her new neighbors.
They seemed very, very friendly. They were just, very pleasant people, outgoing, kind, considerate. They just seemed like really nice people when they moved to the community.
The couple's lavish spending makes a considerable impression.
It was just kind of like one thing after another. They were always fixing up their big Victorian house, and then they got a camper, and then they kind of remodeled their camper, and then they got a brand new camper and kind of showed it off and bragged about it. And pretty soon they got an acreage where they had their Arabian horses, put up their little white picket fence, and they were just always spending money.
Mona takes a job working for Michael's internet business. The marital tension is impossible to ignore.
They would always, be talking about the other. Michael would say, I love Tracy, but, and then Tracy would be in a conversation with me and she'd say, well, I really love Michael, but, and I'm going, okay.
Ever the Good Samaritan, Michael offers to help Mona's troubled and unemployed teenage son, Dustin.
Michael told me, well, how about if I just kind of take Dustin under my wing and, we can invite him to do some stuff with us. And I'm like, great, wonderful. I mean, that would really be nice. They just kind of went out and rode around and talked a little bit.
It's not long before Mona sees the full extent of their increasingly dysfunctional relationship. One day, Tracy discovers that a bad business deal has cost them thousands of dollars.
And Tracy comes storming in the back door. She was just stomping and rampaging and cursing and yelling at Michael. And Michael looked at me and he says, I'm gonna have to excuse you. I'm gonna ask you to go home now. And I said, no problem, not my business. So I just got up and gathered my things and I left. Well, the next day, Michael had called and told me that he had spent the night in jail. And I'm like, what?
She started literally kicking her boots through both the drywall on both sides. It would come right through. And she was doing this right over a 220 volt heater. So I put my arms around her to pull her back because I actually thought she was going to electrocute herself. I didn't throw her to the floor. I didn't drop her to the floor. I actually laid her down. And then I stepped back because she was hurting me.
An hour later, local police receive a call from Tracy and Michael's home.
And then red and blue lights outside. And that was it. Police officers, guns drawn. I came to the front door. I said, what's up, guys? I said, put the child down, put the child down. I was taken away.
Very much like what happened with John, where there was this explosion of anger. She starts going crazy. She's kicking the wall. She seems to be seeing red. He's having a hard time getting her to focus. This is definitely a pattern.
Meanwhile, Tracy's ex-husband, John Pittman, is pressing his case for custody of their son.
She hadn't behaved well as a co-parent at that point, and she was going to have problems in the Illinois court. That was number one. She had made a second abuse allegation that had failed, and obviously things were falling apart at home with her and Michael because they'd gotten into a fight, and he ended up in jail.
Custody disputes, allegations of abuse, and a sexual assault case should provide enough drama for any married couple. But what happens next turns this drama into a tragedy.
I was supposed to contact Tracy about some work that she had for Dustin. She goes, oh, we've just got a whole bunch of copies for him to make. She said, just send him down in the next day or two. And I'm like, okay.
Later that day, Mona receives a horrifying telephone call.
My nephew called me on my cell phone and he had told me something really bad had happened at my friend's house down the street. And the house is all taped off and, there was a fatality, but he goes, I don't know who. And I just personally thought Michael had shot Tracy or Tracy had shot Michael. And my husband goes, I think Dustin's car is at the Roberts. I'm just like, I want to see my son. I want to see my son. And they're like, you can't. You need to go home.
Tracy's mother, Anna, hears the news from her 11-year-old grandson.
At first he was calm and he goes, Grandma? And I said, yeah. He said there was a shooting in the house. Someone tried to kill Mommy.
2 men had broken in, tried to strangle Tracy. She'd managed to get a gun and kill one, and the other got away.
December 2001. The Roberts family home in Early, Iowa is a scene of turmoil and tragedy. According to Tracy, who was at home with the kids, 2 men entered the house and attacked her violently. Tracy shoots one of them dead, and the other escapes. The dead man turns out to be a familiar face at the Roberts home, Dustin Wehde.
I just looked at them and I said, "Is my son here?" And they go, "Yes." And I'm like, "Is he dead?" And they go, "Yes." It was just like, you got to be kidding me.
My blood froze. It was this crazy world that I'd entered into just got a whole lot crazier.
Family and investigators try to piece together this horrific chain of events.
She heard someone coming downstairs, and she thought it was Michael coming home early.
Saw 2 men coming up the stairs, didn't recognize them.
She says, "I just turned with the baby, and I start running towards the bedroom."
Ran to the boys' room, handed my daughter to one of the boys, was pulled back by a ponytail, closed the door while being pulled back, was strangled, fell unconscious.
Tracy says the attackers tried to strangle her with pantyhose.
From what I understand, when Tracy woke up, she pushed herself back, and they hit the wall, and she got away.
She got up, ran to the room, got underneath the bed, was able to get a gun out.
And then she just laid there between the bed and the wall and just started firing in the direction. And then she heard running down the stairs.
When the police arrive, they find Mona's son, Dustin, dead in a pool of blood. The second intruder, whose identity is unknown, has apparently escaped. In the days following, Mona Wehde tries to understand this devastating tragedy.
None of it made sense. And then as the police are starting to ask us questions, I would ask questions. Well, was the house broke into? No. I'm like, my son parked right in front of their house under their security light. Did he have any weapons? No. Did he have a mask? No. Did he have gloves on? No. And there was no forceful entry. But he went there to rob him. I'm like, that don't make any sense.
It also doesn't make much sense to the police.
The story seemed bizarre. There didn't really seem to be a motive for the 2 men to be in the house. They decided to maybe go in the house and steal some guns or steal some jewelry or maybe even attack Tracy sexually. But the problem is every kind of corner that they turned led to a dead end. Dustin didn't have any friends. Dustin didn't really want anything from the Roberts other than to be their friends.
Tracy's not short on enemies. Could one of them have hired or persuaded Dustin to invade the Roberts family home? Everyone's got a theory. Michael's first thought is that the dentist, Dr. Laspiza, who allegedly drugged and sexually assaulted his wife, is involved.
3 days before, we were in Chicago. We were ready to go to trial with this guy, a jury trial with this guy, for the alleged rape. I said, you have to look for an Illinois number plate. It's got to be. I just knew it was Laspiza.
Anna suspects Michael. She feels he reacted strangely on the day of the shooting.
He was so cold. I mean, the look on his face, his eyes, I mean, it was scary almost to the point. And he didn't really ask any question.
Tracy points to the acrimonious custody dispute with her ex-husband, John.
And every time I would demonstrate how Dr. Laspiza was the obvious suspect in this, she would shoot it down and would bring it back to Dr. Pittman.
According to Anna, Tracy is desperate to find out the motives behind the attack.
She just couldn't figure out why, and all she kept asking was why. She said, all I want to do is find out why.
Mona does not believe for a minute that her son Dustin was killed in self-defense.
We didn't know what happened, or why, or how. We really thought that, you know, Dustin walked in on something, seen or learned something he wasn't supposed to, and they had to kill him. And then we were saying they, meaning Michael and Tracy. The thought did come up, you know, was Tracy trying to seduce my son, and Michael came home and caught it and shot him and killed him. But, you know, I seriously, in the beginning, thought Michael was using Tracy and making her come up with this story, and, you know, she's this heroic mother that's saving her children. Tracy would always talk about how infatuated Michael is with guns, and they had a lot of guns, 60, I don't know, a lot of guns. And I'd see them laying around periodically, and they were big guns. They weren't just little guns. They were all kinds of shapes and sizes, and I was kind of like, those are scary. You know, and that was another reason why, you know, you kind of thought Michael did it.
Privately, Michael also has grave doubts about Tracy's account of the killing.
It was a mess. There was blood, brain matter, bone everywhere. And it just stunk. The first thing I did was looked at the floor, and there was 3 bullet holes in a very tight group that I think any marksman would be proud of.
He finds it hard to believe that pantyhose were conveniently available to be used as a murder weapon.
The weapon was found on the banister, which was her pantyhose, which wasn't where pantyhose were left. She had those little dryer bags for her lingerie, and I prohibited anything to be dried on that banister. Lots of very strange details that didn't fit in a practical way.
But in public, Michael backs Tracy up 100%.
I was her champion and defender after that. When people would question motives, question evidence and so forth, I would always be able to present it in a way that puts her in the most favorable light.
And Michael was bragging about it afterwards. Oh, don't mess with the mother and her kids, you know, and that. And he was going around, you know, patting her on the back and telling her what a great person she was and how she saved her children.
Amidst the fear and suspicion, the residents of Early, Iowa are unaware that police have stumbled on a crucial piece of evidence, a notebook.
The notebook was the centerpiece of the case, the notebook that was found in Dustin Wehde's car.
Filled with Dustin's sloppy handwriting, the notebook backs up Tracy's theory that her ex-husband is involved, and the police believe the notebook is genuine. Dustin writes that he was hired as a hitman by a mysterious fellow named JP, Dr. John Pittman. It reads, JP wants me to get or force his ex, TR, to kill her son Bert and then commit suicide. And if that plan fails, plan B is to make it appear as though TR had committed the murder of her son and then committed suicide. It is damning evidence. Tracy's first husband becomes the primary suspect. But meanwhile, a deadly plot is taking shape that will put her second husband in grave danger.
I took her back 3 times, and then in March she tried to kill me.
Dustin Wehde has been shot dead by Tracy Richter in an apparent act of self-defense. Dustin's handwritten notebook suggests that Tracy's first husband, Dr. John Pittman, is involved. But lead investigator Trent Villada has some doubts.
I still have yet to find anyone to believe that a nationally recognized plastic surgeon would have decided to hire Dustin Wehde as an assassin for Tracy. That it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that they would know Dustin. It doesn't make any sense that if they wanted Tracy to die, that they would ask Dustin to do it.
I remember hearing something from someone that I was being implicated in, and I thought, well, you know, how ridiculous is that? But, you know, what else is new?
Dustin's mother, Mona Wehde, refuses to believe he wrote the journal of his own free will.
They asked me if my son journaled, and I'm like, no. I said, not Dustin, he hates to write. We could barely get him to do his schoolwork, let alone for just Dustin to journal.
Investigators begin to wonder if Tracy forced Dustin to write in the notebook in an attempt to set up her ex-husband.
She was going through another custody dispute with John Pittman, and John Pittman was the guy she hated most in the world. And there's no court in the world that's going to give custody to a guy that's accused of a murder for hire.
The notebook is kept secret from the public, the press, and all the potential suspects. Police believe that anyone who has knowledge of the journal could be complicit in the death of Dustin Wehde.
The investigators, they were waiting to see who was going to come forward and start talking about the notebook.
Meanwhile, Tracy and Michael's marriage, already on the rocks, is held together by the slender thread of the Dustin Wehde shooting.
It gave me a passion, it gave me something to focus on, and allowed me to make excuses for Tracy's behavior. I thought that there was going to be follow-up attacks because I still thought that Pittman or Laspiza or somebody's involved, so I'm hyper-vigilant. I was living in a war zone.
Tracy's obsession with John Pittman and the custody dispute continues. And Michael, well, he's about to get a real wake-up call.
I'd caught Tracy in another affair late 2003, early 2004, and I took her back 3 times. And then in March, she tried to kill me.
He now realizes that Tracy was trying to drug him with sedatives in order to kill him.
You have to understand that I was under a systematic drugging campaign. Best I can estimate 2, maybe 3 weeks. I mean, I was in some sort of narcotic psychosis, and I went to sleep in the car, but I didn't that she'd started the engine and was trying to kill me with carbon monoxide.
I don't know a good way to describe their marriage or what went on in that house other than it's just strange.
One night, I was sort of semi-conscious. I mean, I was there. I can remember everything, but there was no resistance to anything. And she rolled me up in a sheet, big safety pins, pinned me, tied me up like a cocoon, sat on top of me and put a plastic bag over my head. So I had no oxygen for close to 10 minutes, by my best estimates. I was just stuck, and I didn't think I had a choice. I didn't realize, because you put a frog in cold water and start boiling it, the frog will never try jumping out, it'll boil to death. That was me.
He saw these things, it was getting hotter and hotter, and he just acclimated and justified and explained. And then the next thing he knew, boom, there was an explosion.
What can happen sometimes is that a person who is inclined to give another a second, a third, a fourth, a fifth chance can end up enabling that person to be out there endangering people much longer than they should.
When Michael finally does go to the police, he can't persuade them his life is in danger.
I'm the guy, It's usually the guys that do the abuse.
Fearing for his life, Tracy's second husband finally jumps out of the boiling water. He changes the locks and files for divorce. Michael calls John Pittman, a fellow survivor of a Tracy Richter marriage.
And my first comment with him was, "Let me guess, you're afraid for your life." And he said, "Yes, very much so." And I said, "Well, that's probably a healthy thing to be."
With the second marriage over, Tracy tries to turn suspicion away from John Pittman and towards Michael.
Michael Roberts was never a suspect in Tracy's eyes, right up until the day they got divorced. Whoever she hated the most was responsible for the attack.
In the years following, the Dustin Wehde case goes cold. Mona Wehde attempts to bring a wrongful death lawsuit against Tracy, but she can't afford the legal fees.
We were getting nowhere. We felt nothing was happening, no questions were being answered, and that was our personal attempt to try to get questions answered.
Special Agent Trent Villida never believes Tracy's claim of self-defense. In 2010, 9 years after the fatal shooting of Dustin Wehde, he persuades the new county attorney, Ben Smith, to reopen the investigation.
There was just a lot of things that jumped out at me, even in the first hour, that I really spent some time on it that just did not add up. My first inclination was, what are you not telling me about this? Where's the dog in this thing? There has got to be, something that's just impossible, an impossible obstacle or hurdle. So many questions that I'd go to sleep thinking about it. I'd wake up thinking about it.
They narrow down the list of potential conspirators. Police find no evidence that the dentist, Dr. Laspiza, is involved. The first husband, John Pittman, has an alibi. That leaves the second husband, Michael, and Trent's prime suspect, Tracy herself. With Ben on his side, Trent decides to take a chance. He engages Tracy in an email conversation.
Tracy was only going to communicate me if she thought I was on her side. I told her I was in charge of this multi-agency task force. We were going to discover the identity of the second attacker. Now, I didn't say I believe there was a second attacker, and I know in the back of her mind she knows there wasn't one. But as with any suspect who wants the police to believe them, I knew she would try to become cooperative.
As the emails go back and forth, Tracy starts to become more talkative, and she gets sloppy. Tracy brings up the notebook, the same notebook found in Dustin's car and kept a closely guarded secret by the police for 10 years. They know that anyone who mentions it may be complicit in Dustin's death.
She said, Michael Roberts had a premonition from God that Mona would find a notebook that would allow them to sue John Pittman.
Then, Tracy Richter makes a colossal slip-up.
I basically told her I was going to go talk to Michael Roberts and John Pittman and asked her if she would describe them for me. The most amazing thing happened. The one paragraph she used to describe John Pittman was basically paragraph 5 from Dustin's pink notebook, almost an exact quote. For me, that was a huge turning point. That was her saying, in her own words, what was in the notebook. I think that Tracy knew the longer she spoke with me, the worse it was starting to look for us. I think she needed to end it somehow.
But Wehde needs more. He needs proof that Tracy knew about the notebook at the time of Dustin's death. There's one witness that may be able to help, a close friend of Tracy's, Mary Higgins. If she knows about the notebook, she would have heard it directly from Tracy.
By all accounts, everything that I gathered from the report is that Mary was Tracy's closest friend. And it's not easy to get a best friend to tell on their friend knowing what the stakes are.
Trent had always told me that Mary Higgins, she knows something, and I had gotten to know her, met her a couple of times. I guarantee you, Trent, she knows nothing. And I go out there, she does not want to talk. She doesn't want to talk about it. She's past it, you'll never catch her. And then I said something, we think that we, found something that can link her to this. And she told me, you mean that stupid pink notebook? And I almost got sick when she said it. So Mary Higgins, huge. I mean, absolutely, tying her to that. Once we had Mary Higgins' testimony, that was the case.
Finally, 9.5 years after Dustin Wehde's death, Tracy Richter is charged with first-degree murder. At the trial, Mary testifies that Tracy told her about the notebook soon after the killing. The prosecution argues that Tracy convinced Dustin to write the diary and then shot him dead in an attempt to set up her ex-husband.
There's speculation that maybe she lured him up there, promising him sex for writing the notebook, or Dustin loved computers, so maybe she promised him a job with the company, or it could be as simple as she described John Pittman as a child molester and Dustin would help out the family by keeping Bert away from Dr. Pittman.
People, say, oh, she was gonna lose child support. She didn't care about child support, she cared about winning. She cared about beating Dr. Pittman. That's it. It's all it ever was.
On November 7th, 2011, the jury finds Tracy Richter guilty of first-degree murder. She is sentenced to life in prison. Tracy still maintains her innocence, as does her family.
They say that I just can't accept. And I said, I can accept it if it's true, but I know it's not true. And I'm gonna fight, and I don't care. I'm never gonna give up to prove that she's innocent.
Look at the lives that have been wrapped up around her and the people who've gotten close to her and what's happened to them. Between me and Michael and the dentist and all these people whose lives have almost gotten destroyed by her. Is that coincidence? I mean, you know, that's a heck of a coincidence.
She got first-degree murder, life in prison, without parole. It's true, it's real, it happened. That part is done, it's over with.
I hope Mona knows how deeply sorry I am. Not only did I bring her son into the orbit of a monster, I defended that monster and I insulted her son after he was dead. And for that, I'm very, very sorry.
Back in the Old West, Wyoming was a lawless land where life was cheap. Not anymore.
We have so many police officers that there's no room for crime.
But even today, wide open spaces can muffle the whispers of scandal.
The family was quietly, privately dysfunctional.
People talked. It was just like, do you believe it? Do you think he could do that? Do you think they could do that?
With young lovers in trouble and a marriage on the rocks.
It scared the crud out of me just getting close to that edge.
A tragedy becomes something much worse.
I was riding back with a murderer and didn't know it.
It was a 3-word email, dig 'em up.
An accident is one thing. A double homicide, that's a whole different animal.
Love may be blind and marriage bliss, but divorce is murder. Green River, Wyoming. A mining town that hasn't changed much since the old days, as if the jagged desert cliffs protect it from the troubles of the modern world.
Green River. It is small. We are very Western.
What a beautiful town. It is, and it really is. It's just a quiet, peaceful, healthy place to raise a family.
Crime. We have so many police officers that there's no room for crime.
But crime forces its way in. This story of lost innocence begins with high school sweethearts, Lyanna Davidson and Bob Duke. The young lovers meet in typing class.
Yeah, they're always together. If you remember one, you remember the other.
I taught Lyanna in primary. She was quiet. She was not a troublemaker. She just was a sweet young lady.
She's just soft-spoken, and you could just feel the kindness.
Lyanna, smart, pretty, and well-liked, is also a practicing Mormon.
Being Mormon, you live by higher standards. You walk a straighter line than most people. And she chose to walk it pretty straight. She didn't drink or smoke or you know, things of the 90s. No, she was a good girl.
Bob isn't Mormon, but he also plays it pretty straight and dreams of leaving Green River behind as soon as he graduates.
He was above average. He seemed to grasp all the stuff that I was trying to teach.
He wasn't no tough guy or super stud athlete. He's just a calm kid that kind of just stayed back and camouflaged in.
Bob's parents are respected school teachers with a reputation for being strict.
Bob's parents were more the educated type.
In my opinion, two of the very nicest people you could ever meet. I always really, really liked and respected them.
Not all of Bob's friends are as squeaky clean as he is, especially his friend Roger.
Roger lived a little faster than Bob did. He had a taste for various intoxicants. He was not a perfect citizen.
They're good friends, but complete opposites. Bob and Roger bond over kung fu and hitman movies. But Bob stays respectable, while Roger cultivates a tough guy image.
He was like one of them guys that I think in 8th grade had a goatee, you know, smoked Levi jacket. He did get in fights and caused hell, raised hell, but
Drug peddler, troublemaker. From what I heard and what I had seen, he was basically a thug. I don't know any other way to really put it.
Roger and Bob shoot pool and tear up the desert sage. Typical teenage boys.
he liked to run around in his Jeep. You know, that was his thing.
Off-roading, running around with the boys, things like that.
But those days are about to come to an end. News from Lyanna means Bob has to grow up, and fast. And Green River is about to learn that Lyanna's not always the good girl who can do no wrong.
Green River, it being a town of 11,000 people, us finding out about them having a baby was pretty quick.
Lyanna is pregnant at 16. Rose and Ralph, Lyanna's mom and dad, stand by their daughter.
They were very loving, kind parents and very accepting, non-judgmental.
I'm sure they felt just like the rest of us, you know, they started a little bit early, but, oh well, you know, life will go on.
I can see Rose being assured that Lyanna was mature enough to take care of a child.
Bob's parents find it more difficult to accept. They had big plans for their son.
I can see Bobby and Larry thinking, oh my word, his life's ruined. I think Dukes were probably more upset about it than Davidson's would have been.
Bob dreams of leaving Green River, of going to college, and exploring the world. Lyanna's dreams are more modest.
I think she epitomizes the all-American girl, hopes and dreams of raising a family here in Green River.
No matter. In small-town Wyoming, there's not much of a choice.
If you got someone pregnant, you married them. Or if they got you pregnant, you married them. It was just done.
I think that they knew what was right.
Bob and Lyanna marry on May 25th, 1991, the same day he graduates from high school.
You know, I'm sure there might have been some family pressure there.
Less than 3 months later, Lyanna, age 17, gives birth to baby Eric.
Oh, he was a doll. He was a beautiful little boy. he was. I will tell you this, I mean, Ralph and Rose adored him, but Dukes idolized him.
Psychotherapist Stacy Kaiser and forensic psychologist Brian Russell see challenges ahead for this young couple.
I think they literally felt it was their duty and obligation to do what they thought was the right thing, and the right thing in this case was to get married and have that child.
Relationships that start really young can be successful. It's just that anytime you begin an endeavor like that that's difficult even for people who are fully ready and fully planned it on a shaky footing, it just increases the likelihood that there are going to be problems.
I think the marriage and having a child so young was easier on Lyanna because she did always aspire to be a mom and a homemaker. But for Bob, he had big ideas. He wanted to leave the area where he was living. He wanted to go to college. And so it was a giant sacrifice for him to make.
Even though he's young, at first, Bob seems to take his new responsibilities seriously.
He laid carpet and tile and worked in a furniture store, and he started his own business laying carpet for a while. Reportedly did fairly well.
Lyanna graduates from high school a year later, then devotes herself to her new family.
She adored Eric. She doted on him. You know, very fearful for Eric, she was very protective of him. Some people think that women are, put down or not valued in the LDS religion, and that's not true. You're taught to be a mother, you're taught to be a homemaker. And she exemplified all that.
Lyanna fills the house with homemade crafts and dreams for the future.
She was very talented, and I think that she had goals of opening a craft store, and she loved doing those types of things.
Still, this young marriage is not always a bed of roses. Bob was independent, and this would sometimes clash with his family obligations.
It appears that his goals were still being a young man with no strings, doing what Bob wanted to do.
You know, she was home and family, and he was other things, adventurous things, exploratory things.
They were faced immediately with having to grow up right after high school, and that's hard.
Bob starts spending less time with his family.
I don't believe Eric was a priority for him. You know, it cut into the Bob time. And I think that he had a hard time with that.
To me, being a dad, it's not talk, it's not money, it's putting in the time, it's quality time. I heard he wasn't there. Just heard he was absent.
Do you know that I never saw Bob with Eric? Never.
Still, no marriage is perfect. And after 5 years, life has settled into a routine. Until suddenly, tragedy strikes. On August 10th, 1996, the Dukes drive out of town for a birthday picnic. Eric has just turned 5. They turn up a remote desert track to the very end of Lost Dog Trail.
First of all, you've got a pretty good cliff that's there. Second of all, it opens out into this open basin above the lake, and it seems like you're 300 feet in the air.
It's a breathtaking spot, looking out over the vista of Flaming Gorge Reservoir.
From the time we were young, really young kids, 7, 8, 9 years old, we were climbing up the mountain, chasing lizards. You know, we look at cliffs, they're all over the dang place.
But the precipice at the end of Lost Dog Trail is not just any cliff.
When I went out there, it scared the crud out of me just getting close to that edge.
The way Lost Dog is, no, you wouldn't have let your child out there.
Then, the unthinkable happens.
Very few people actually understood just how bad that cliff is.
You lose a child, you're never the same again.
Two teenagers face an unplanned pregnancy, followed by a shotgun wedding. Still, Bob and Lyanna Duke dream of a promising future together. But their dreams are dashed on the rocks at Lost Dog Trail.
We were called to the cliffs out on Lost Dog. We will need rope rescue. There's apparently, we didn't know at the time, 2 people went off the cliff. That's all we knew.
There's no sign of Lyanna or Eric. Bob Duke is in a state of shock.
He told the investigator that Eric was on the cliff chasing lizards.
They were up on the top of that cliff, looking out, and that he went back to the Jeep to get something to drink or a toy or something.
That's what we heard, that Bob was picking up the toys and taking them back.
His back was only turned for a moment.
She and Eric walked too close to the edge. The cliff gave way.
He heard Lyanna let out a scream, and that Eric had fallen, and she went after him.
The child fell, she grabbed for him. They fell.
Seemingly inconsolable, Bob tells first responders he'd never before driven down Lost Dog Trail and had no idea how dangerous it was.
They were riding around, looking for a place to have a picnic, and just ended up there.
Both Lyanna and Eric died immediately after a fall of 180 feet.
They were pretty well tore up. I don't like to talk about that. I tried to forget it. It wasn't pretty.
Lyanna Duke was just 22. Eric Duke, just 5 years old.
A lot of things go through your mind. It just seemed like such a waste, you know, a young life, well, 2 young lives right there.
Bob Clevenger rides back to town with Bob Duke.
I tried to make small talk with him. I did not want to say anything that would upset him. And I walked him into his house, into his parents' house. And all I said is, your son needs you now. And then I left.
Both sets of parents were just devastated. I mean, they were devastated at the loss of both of them. Bob literally showed no emotion. We left the mortuary and went home, and I told Rudy, he asked, do you think he even realizes that they're gone, what's happened? And he said no. He said he's not even in touch with reality.
The tragedy is ruled an accident by the Sweetwater County Sheriff's Department.
We've had a few kids fall off cliffs, four-wheelers, motorcycles. The way it happened, that's what got us. Knowing that they went up there for Eric's birthday, that's what got us.
Lyanna and Eric are buried side by side in the Riverview Cemetery.
The next day, I took flowers to the house, and the house was just covered with flowers.
The whole town is full of sympathy for the Davidsons, for the Dukes, and for Bob, a widower at just 23 years old. And then Bob gets on with his life, perhaps too quickly.
A month after the funeral, I was coming home from base, and I was driving past the gas station, and I noticed Bob Duke and his new girlfriend, and they were happy, and it just struck me as being odd.
It's difficult in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy to say how somebody should and should not react to it. There are people who shut down, there are people who get very expressive, but there are certain behaviors that people engage in that are clearly unusual. Moving very quickly on into what looks like a new happy phase of life is a red flag for me as a forensic psychologist.
I think it's a huge red flag that Bob is seen very quickly after their deaths with another young woman. It makes me wonder if he had a relationship before their deaths that was already started and he had picked it up after their deaths.
The rumors start to circulate. With a new girlfriend in the picture so quickly, Green River gossips wonder whether Bob and Lyanna's marriage was as solid as it appeared from the outside. They hear reports that suggest Bob was far from content.
He told others that don't get married, it'll ruin your life. He told a young woman that he would never make that mistake again, referring to having a child.
One of the Duke's neighbors reports hearing them argue behind closed doors.
She heard fights. She would hear him screaming obscenities at her and calling her vile names, and not just once. She heard it on a pretty regular basis.
There were stories that Bob cheated on Lyanna and that Lyanna knew about it. One woman found her in the most unlikely place, the bathroom of the Wild Horse Saloon.
She opened the door and went in. There was no one else in there except a young woman who was bent over the counter there crying.
Lyanna was there, searching for Bob.
And then she told her that a friend called and said he was there with another woman, and that's why she was there in the first place. She indicated that she was in a horrible marriage and that her husband wanted out, and he'd said he would kill her, and she and Deb said, well, we've all been there.
It wasn't the only time she'd seen Lyanna in distress.
And she remembered a very unpleasant incident at the grocery store where she saw Bob and Lyanna together, and he was yelling, and then he dumped over the grocery cart, and she started to cry, and she's picking up the groceries and putting them in the cart, and he's standing there yelling at her.
Before the marriage, Bob used to talk of college, of travel, no more.
He did feel trapped. He did feel like, you know, he didn't live his life, and he got married too early and had a kid too early, and all his money went to, you know, raising a family and not to Jeeps and toys and things like that.
He told several people various versions, but he didn't like being married. One statement I recall was he married the wrong sister because the sister was outgoing and social. Lyanna was a homebody.
Bob's friends had suggested divorce, but for Lyanna, it was not an option.
I don't think that divorce was socially acceptable in Mormon or LDS communities. People stayed together who never should stay together. They stayed together for the kids.
Divorce is ugly, because with divorce comes, and you have a child, comes child support.
Lyanna wanted to save the marriage, have another baby.
She wanted children, he didn't. And I think that's a goal that there's really not a lot of compromise there.
They were young. I think that she wanted to do whatever she could to make it work because she wanted to provide that home for her child. That's what she wanted, more than anything.
A troubled marriage and suspicions of infidelity do not give the police reason to believe that Lyanna and Eric's deaths were anything but an accident. Until Bob's high school buddy Roger reappears, ready to reveal an extraordinary secret, a secret that will cast new light on the events at Lost Dog Trail.
I believe that a murder had been committed, not one but two.
A 5-year marriage ends with the sudden deaths of Lyanna and her 5-year-old son, Eric Duke. Friends and neighbors feel nothing but sympathy for grieving husband Bob Duke, despite his strange behavior after the tragedy. But one local cop has niggling doubts from the very start. Back in 1996, after Lyanna and Eric died, Mont Meekum drives out to the end of Lost Dog Trail.
So I didn't like a story. You don't take your small child and your wife and go have a picnic on a rock ledge on 3 sides. When I went to the cliff and looked over, in my opinion, I had no doubt. I believe that a murder had been committed, not one but two.
From the very beginning, Mont found major flaws in the police investigation. But the case belonged to the sheriff's office, not to him.
They didn't do search warrants, they just didn't do interviews, they didn't do follow-up, they didn't talk to friends.
And there was no forensic autopsy on the bodies.
The sheriff said, hey, it's an accident, let it go. They couldn't get through their heads, I believe, that a person could throw his wife and his child off a cliff.
Mont's words fall on deaf ears.
Basically because it was in the county, and I definitely let him know that my opinion was. And the chief basically come down and said, okay, you've spoke your piece, move on. They'll handle it.
Not everyone is suspicious. Most Green River residents are convinced by Bob's account of the tragedy.
He told me the whole story, and it tore me up. He said he ran over to the edge of the cliff and could see him down there, and he could hear his son gurgling blood and trying to breathe. He said he could hear that, but he said that there was no way that he could get down there.
But for Mont, the story doesn't ring true. When the rescuers arrived, they had no trouble finding their way down the hillside to the bottom of the cliff. And how could Bob, standing on a windy clifftop, hear his son breathing 180 feet below? The questions remain unanswered. 2 years after the death of his wife and son, Bob moves to Houston to live with his older brother, Mike. Then, out of the blue, Mont receives a startling telephone call. A call from none other than Bob's old friend, the local hellraiser, Roger.
I knew Roger and Bob both from when my boy was in high school with them. They played and joked and, sneak a beer out of my fridge once in a while.
Roger tells Mont he's been keeping a secret. Back in 1996, just weeks before Lyanna and Eric died, Roger says that Bob came up with a deadly proposition.
Bob came to Roger and voiced that he was unhappy in his marriage and that he wanted them gone. Roger and Bob had watched some movies. Hitman, I believe, was one of the movies that they'd watched. And they'd discussed and kind of joked around about knocking people off.
Specifically, knocking off Lyanna and Eric.
The plan evolved into Bob would pay Roger a sum of money in the neighborhood of $20,000. Roger would shoot Lyanna and Eric during a barbecue that the family would be having.
They were going to shoot him over the fence and make it, a burglary gone bad type situation.
To make it look good, make sure that he shot Bob in the leg or somewhere that it wouldn't be fatal, but that it would make it look real.
Roger says he thought the whole thing was a joke, but when Lyanna and Eric fell to their deaths, he believed it was no accident.
He was very concerned, and that was his first thought, was that Bob had killed them.
At the time of the deaths, Bob pulled Roger aside and insisted he had nothing to do with the tragedy at Lost Dog Trail. Roger believed him.
He just didn't think he had done it. He couldn't believe that somebody could do it.
Nobody thinks that their friend would ever kill their wife or child. And so it makes sense to me that Roger just thought that Bob was joking when he made a comment like that.
Well, hindsight is 20/20. It may have been that Roger thought that he was just frustrated with life at home and he was venting and he was sort of fantasizing, but with benign intent. Friends and family members want to find a way to believe the people that they love and care about so that they can maintain the relationship. It's a profound loss if they face the fact that the person is a murderer.
Over 2 years later, Roger has a change of heart about his old friend Bob. He tells Mont that out of the blue, Bob Duke had called him. Bob had apparently spent the $60,000 in life insurance collected after Lyanna and Eric's deaths. And now, with his brother Mike, he'd hatched a sinister plan to make more.
He contacted Roger and asked him to murder his parents for hire.
When he finally gave up the whole story, I was, holy smokes. Bob had called him and said that if he would help him kill his mom and dad, that he could have anything in the house that he wanted and just keep it for himself. He also said he could have some of the insurance money also to help him out with some of his debts.
Now that Roger has been asked to help kill Bob Duke's parents, he feels sick with guilt.
I think the guilt or his feelings for what had happened to Lyanna and Eric were pretty strong, and that's what actually brought him to the police.
And then when I asked him why he did it, and that's when, the past started coming up. Well, he wanted me to do the wife and kids. Okay, when he said that, that's when he had me hook, line, and sinker, and I was in this thing, okay? Because that confirmed what I'd always suspected.
Roger's startling confession and a potential criminal conspiracy changes the game completely.
An accident is one thing. A double homicide, that's a whole different animal.
Bob's high school buddy Roger tells Green River Police that not only does he believe Bob killed his wife and son, but he's now actively plotting to kill his own parents. Bob makes the critical mistake of calling Roger long distance, which means the case gets turned over to the FBI.
The federal authorities were brought in because of the interstate nature of the conspiracy solicitation. The solicitation was being made from Texas to commit a murder in Wyoming, and so that created federal jurisdiction.
I felt I had a case. There was no doubt in my mind. So then I called the FBI and said, okay, this is what I have.
I remember just having some question about, really, both two brothers both wanting to kill their parents.
But they need more than Roger's word. They need to hear it from Bob directly.
What happened was that Lieutenant Meekum and the FBI arranged to have several phone calls placed that were recorded.
Naturally, Roger would be nervous. I mean, the stakes are pretty high in this type of investigation and these type of phone calls. And so Roger just had to try to get as much information as he could regarding the plot.
I mean, he was scared, big time.
No one is sure whether Roger can pull this off.
Reference conspiracy to commit murder.
Hello? Yeah, hey, it's me.
Roger gets straight down to business.
Yeah, so remember
Hey, remember when we talked before about the $20,000 for killing your parents?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm thinking I might want that.
Do it.
Did you have any ideas about maybe how I could do it, or?
You know, Mike and I were talking.
There were some pretty explicit discussions made about the manner in which it would be done. Bob suggested a .22 would be a weapon of choice because it would be quiet and no one would hear it.
.22 is quiet enough.
Right.
No one can think it's anything more than a door slamming.
Okay.
And everybody's closed up this time of year. Nobody has open windows or anything like that.
Right.
When Duke's parents came home for the evening, Roger was to shoot them.
So it's just walk in and do it and walk out just like it was, like I lived there basically then.
Yeah, the best thing to do would be be there when no one's there.
Right.
And then when they come in.
Just wait till they walk in and then catch them off guard. Okay.
Got to be together.
Okay.
Because my dad does have a gun in the house.
Right.
As well as the $20,000 payoff, Roger would get free rein to ransack the house.
You said that before I could have anything in the house, like maybe your computer? Cool. What was it that you wanted?
He had there's a watch.
A watch? Oh.
But the one thing that Bob was adamant that he not take was his dad's watch, because Bob wanted it.
I've had it with this whole thing. I'm tired of hearing about it.
Right.
So, if you did it,
right,
we could probably up that just a little bit.
Just to make it more worth my while?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you did it, we could probably up it another 5.
Okay.
But the key is ASAP.
It was pretty chilling.
Cool, collected, thought out. And that just makes it 100% real.
The tone of them would make you believe that it was not a joke.
The FBI now has enough to arrest Bob for plotting to kill his parents. But they want more. They want Bob to implicate himself in the killing of his wife and child.
Roger was starting to panic, you know. I mean, the FBI pushed him a lot harder. They didn't coddle him like I would.
Knowing that we had an arrest warrant, we were going to push pretty hard, and Roger was asked to push and to bring up Lyanna and Eric, and he did.
Hey, is there any way we can make it look like an accident, like you did with your wife and kid?
Dude, I did not do that.
You didn't?
No, I didn't do
I
that.
thought you said you did family before.
What?
When we talked the first time, you said you did. Oh, I thought you said you did that.
No.
Huh.
No.
Okay.
Not with that, no.
Huh.
No, that's how come I didn't. We talked about it, and I didn't want nothing to do with it.
Despite this denial, there is at least clear evidence of a conspiracy to kill Bob's parents. And all the while, FBI agents have been lying in wait right outside. Bob Duke is arrested after an FBI sting operation records him conspiring to kill his own parents. Bob and his brother Mike are both charged with conspiracy. Investigators suspect he's also responsible for the deaths of his wife and child. But during a taped call to Roger, Bob categorically denies it.
Is there any way we can make it look like an accident, like you did with your wife and kid?
Dude, I did not do that.
You didn't?
No, I didn't do that.
When news gets out, the school teachers' sons and their murderous plot are the talk of Green River.
It shocked everybody. I don't think there's any other way to put it. One of our kids from our community.
I mean, what a sock in the face. Who would ever thunk that any of that would have happened?
People talked. It was just like, do you believe it? Do you think he could do that? Do you think they could do that?
Special Agent Todd Scott breaks the news to Mike and Bob's parents.
Probably one of the hardest things I've done as an FBI agent. I had the tapes with me. I offered to play them. Their response was, our sons, we're going to stand by them. We don't believe they would do that. We don't want to hear the tapes. And I didn't push.
Can you even imagine hearing your children plotting to kill you for your insurance?
Well, it's extremely unusual for anybody to want to kill a family member, and for somebody to want to kill family members strictly to unburden themselves of the responsibilities of being a husband and father, and then strictly to get money so that they can continue living the lifestyle they want to live, shows a stunning lack of the normal human connectedness and empathy that most of us have for those closest to us in life, our families.
The fact that he could literally go to his parents for financial assistance and say, can I borrow some money to help get back on my feet? But instead of doing that, he'd opt to kill them is appalling. The parents had reported to police that Bob and his brother had a great relationship with them. But the fact that they are conspiring to kill them leads me to believe that there are some secrets that we don't know about.
People seem to think that it was a close-knit family with strict parents and loyal, loving children, and clearly, to some significant degree, that was an illusion.
Faced with recorded proof of the plot, Bob Duke pleads guilty to conspiracy to murder. He's sentenced to 10 years in a federal penitentiary.
Bob received the maximum sentence for the crime that he pled guilty to, which was conspiracy to use an interstate device for murder for hire.
Bob's brother, Mike Duke, gets 21 months for failing to report the plot.
In the calls, it was clear that Bob was in control.
If Bob Duke is capable of plotting to kill his own parents, is he capable of pushing his own wife and son off a cliff?
After hearing from his own mouth what he and Mike were going to do to their parents, there was no doubt in my mind that he killed his wife and his child, that he could do it.
Local police and FBI alike are still bothered by the deaths at Lost Dog Trail.
And I was sitting at my desk and I just couldn't get them out of my mind. And I just picked up the phone and called my friend, Mary Ernst, the death investigator. And I told Mary what had happened. I just said, let me run something by you. She didn't miss a beat. She said, Todd, you've got a homicide. She said, one person goes off the cliff, we're scratching our heads and looking hard. Two go off of a cliff at the same time, especially a mother and a child, no way.
Todd sends the FBI file to the county prosecutors, who are now convinced Bob is responsible, based on Roger's account of the plot to kill Lyanna and Eric. But Roger's word is all they have.
It was just an absolute lack of physical evidence. You have a homicide, you have weapons, blood splatter, all sorts of things that just weren't there.
The most convincing thing in this case is the cliff itself. We decided that this was not an accident, that this was a multiple homicide, and we filed the charges because of that.
Taking a leap of faith, prosecutors charge Bob Duke with the murder of his wife and child. It won't be easy to prove their case.
People's memories just don't stick with them, and so it's hard to take an old case and get facts, just the facts.
But photographs are more reliable. And that's how prosecutors find new hope for this investigation.
There was one certain photograph that we all looked at, and it looked very clearly as though there was a mark across Lyanna's neck, which might have been caused by a rope or a piece of fabric tied around her neck.
There was a good chance, based upon the bruise that we had seen, that we would find evidence of strangulation. There was some suspicion at the time that maybe there was a strangulation used to disable Lyanna, because certainly it would be risky to struggle with someone, on the precipice there.
To prove Bob had strangled his wife, they need forensic evidence. Harold sends the photos to a pathologist.
He emailed me back, and it was a 3-word email dig them up.
So, in July 2000, 4 years after their deaths, they order the exhumation of Eric and Lyanna's bodies.
There's a bone in your throat that's called a hyoid bone. If that bone is broken, she was strangled. That's really the only explanation.
The autopsy results come back 4 days later. For Harold and his colleagues, the results are a blow.
And the hyoid bone was intact, and so the evidence that the real smoking gun that we'd hoped to find wasn't there.
It was pretty disappointing. A forensic autopsy indicating a strangulation would have made the case a lot easier.
Prosecutors move ahead regardless. Bob Duke will be tried for first-degree murder. And with no physical evidence, it could go either way. It's the word of Roger, a small-town hood, against his buddy, Bob Duke.
Bob's past, as opposed to Roger's past, were kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. And so, who are they going to believe? Bob or Roger?
You never second-guess a jury. If we convince 12 of them that he did it, we win. If we convince 11 of them that he did it, we lose. Got to convince all 12, beyond a reasonable doubt.
Bob Duke tries to convince the court that the phone calls with Roger should not be taken seriously.
His testimony during the trial, and he did testify on his own behalf, was always that those conversations were a prank. They were a joke. It was meant to be funny. That was the only explanation I ever remember him giving.
The way that I tried to deal with that is I would quote him or read him a specific passage from the transcript of the conversation. For instance, a 22 would work. It doesn't make very much noise and the neighbors wouldn't hear. And I would ask him, is this part of the joke? You could take them by surprise. When they get home, they're going on a trip to Salt Lake for shopping. You can take them by surprise, and you're free to ransack the property and take property. Is this part of the joke? And so after confronting him with the litany of these quotations, at one point I looked at Bob and I asked him, Bob, stop me when I get to the funny part. And he just kind of had no reaction to that. There's very little he could say other than, I didn't mean it, it wasn't serious, and that's what he tried to do, but it was a very hard sell. In fact, I think an impossible sell.
In the middle of the trial, a surprise witness turns up, giving a much-needed boost to the prosecution's case.
We were having a sandwich for lunch, kind of rushed. I had a message that there was someone there to see me. I basically told, my staff that I was too busy. I couldn't talk to anybody. And the woman was insistent that she needed to talk to me. She says, I've got some information about this case. Certainly had no idea it would be something as useful as this turned out to be.
She tells him that she met Bob Duke at a mini-mart in 1994 when she was 13 years old.
She and her sister had been basically out on the streets of the little town of Green River. Bob and Roger had essentially picked them up. They were both underage. They wanted to obtain and drink alcohol. Bob and Roger apparently were willing to provide the alcohol in exchange for female company, and they began kind of a dating relationship, as she describes it.
She and Bob spent a month making out and driving around in the desert. Bob confides in her. Things are not going well with his wife, Lyanna.
He told her he was married in name only, and that he did not want to go through a divorce, but he wanted out of the marriage.
He told her that he was searching for a way that he could get out of his marriage which would not involve paying child support.
Making out with a minor may be morally dubious, but it's a long way from murder. But then, the witness puts a giant dent in Bob's story. She reveals that Bob brought her out to the end of Lost Dog Trail more than once.
She had been to the crime scene with Bob Duke in 1994. And so he lied and told people that he'd never been there before. That was his first time, and she proved that to be untrue.
She was a concrete witness to testify that Bob Duke's story was false in at least one regard.
She tells her story on the stand, crucially catching Bob in a lie.
One of two things happened out there. Either it was an accident, as Bob Duke had always claimed, or it was murder, as we were claiming. There was nothing in between. And if it were an accident, there's certainly no reason for Bob to lie about the circumstances of the accident.
Nobody knows for sure whether Bob Duke pushed them off the cliff, whether he chased them off the cliff, whether he rendered them unconscious and threw their bodies off the cliff. Nobody knows exactly what happened other than Bob Duke. But we know that Eric and Lyanna went out to that cliff and that Bob Duke caused them to go off the cliff, and that's what caused them to die.
The jury takes just a few hours to reach a verdict. Bob Duke is found guilty of first-degree murder. In September 2002, he's sentenced to 6 life terms for murder and conspiracy.
Bob very nearly got away with 2 murders and may well have done so had he not tried to do it again.
Bob's parents never accept that their son was a killer or that they were in danger of being his next potential victims.
They defended both Bob and Mike the whole time. They never, ever wavered. One has to respect their position, because I would imagine that that's probably one of the hardest things for any parent to get their head around, that their child, or their children in this case, would want them dead.
Roger can perhaps claim credit for saving their lives.
I think Roger did the right thing. I mean, I think he's, in this instance, Roger's a stand-up guy, and he did something that was very hard for him.
The thing about it, Roger is straightened out. So, I mean, it helped him in a lot of ways.
Bob Duke has exhausted all of his appeals and is serving one of his 6 life sentences. His crimes leave a shadow hanging over the town of Green River.
It's heartbreaking. Unnecessary, stupid.
That's where I felt down at this scene with the bodies. A waste, you know. It was just a waste.
I'm just glad that justice was served. Lives will never be the same. A lot of lives.